All right, let's get right into it. We hear all the time about the amazing promise of artificial intelligence, right? How it's going to make businesses smarter, faster, and way more efficient. But there's a flip side we don't talk about nearly enough, and that's its hidden dangers. Because when an AI gets something wrong, the consequences aren't small. They can be massive, and they can hide in plain sight.
So, where do these dangers even come from? Well, one of the biggest and most sneaky risks is something called unseen bias. And to really get what this means, let's just look at a powerful, real-world example from the world of healthcare.
So, back in 2019, a study in the journal Science took a hard look at a popular AI tool. Hospitals were using this thing to identify high-risk patients who needed extra care. The algorithm crunched all the numbers, looked at all the patient data, and decided that only about 18% of the people who should be flagged for this extra attention were Black patients.
But here's the bombshell. The AI was dead wrong. When researchers actually went back and looked at the patients who were the sickest, they found the numbers should have been completely different. It turns out about 46% of the high-risk patients were Black. The algorithm was missing a massive number of people it was specifically designed to help.
And this is where you see the true danger of AI: scale. We're not talking about a small mistake here. Researchers estimated that this one single flawed algorithm was being used on at least 100 million patients across the US. When AI gets it wrong for every single person it touches.
Now, what's crucial to understand is that the people who built this AI, they didn't set out to discriminate. The bias was completely accidental. And this is not some one-off thing. It's a systemic problem. So let's break down the 4 main ways this kind of bias can creep into an AI system.
First up, you've got historical bias. This is what happens when you train an AI on data that just reflects the ugly parts of our own history. So, for example, if you feed an AI old mortgage data, it's going to learn that lenders were 80% more likely to deny loans to Black applicants compared to similar white applicants. The AI doesn't see injustice, it just sees a pattern, and its job is to learn and repeat that pattern.
Next is undersampling bias. This one's pretty straightforward. It's when your training data just doesn't have enough information about a certain group of people. So, imagine you're planning new bus routes using smartphone location data. Sounds smart, right? But you totally miss the 15% of Americans who don't even own a smartphone, a group that includes a lot of lower-income folks who depend on public transit the most. The system would, without meaning to, just end up helping the wealthy.
Then we have proxy bias. And this one's a little trickier. It's when you use one piece of data as a stand-in or a proxy for another. For example, using arrest records as a proxy for crime rates. But think about it. If one neighborhood is policed way more heavily because of racial profiling, the people there are going to have higher arrest rates, even if the actual crime rate is the same everywhere else. The AI learns this proxy and it mistakes more policing for more crime.
And finally, bias can come from the goal you give the AI in the first place. Let's say you're using AI to decide who gets a lung transplant, and you tell it, hey, your goal is to maximize the number of years the lungs will be used. Seems logical, right? But because of systemic health issues, Black patients in the US have a lower average life expectancy. So that goal, which sounds totally neutral, would actually end up systematically discriminating against them.
Okay, so if we know where bias comes from, can't we just program our way out of it? Well, this is where things get really, really complicated. Because it turns out there's no single agreed-upon technical definition of what fairness even is. In fact, different definitions can be mathematically opposed to each other.
This whole conflict played out in a real case involving an algorithm called Compass, which was used to predict if a criminal would reoffend. The company that built it, Northpoint, said fairness means maximizing true positives, so correctly identifying people who will go on to commit another crime. But then investigators at ProPublica came along and said, whoa, wait a minute, fairness should mean minimizing false positives, not incorrectly flagging people who won't reoffend. And here's the kicker, you mathematically cannot do both at the same time. If you optimize for one, the other gets worse. It's a trade-off.
And that really brings us to the heart of the matter, which is captured perfectly in this quote. Deciding which kind of fairness to prioritize, well, that's not a technical problem for a data scientist to solve. It is an ethical and a business judgment that needs to be made by people.
So if technology by itself can't fix this,
What's the answer?
The solution here isn't another line of code. It's structural. It's about building a human-led process for governance. The solution is an AI ethics committee. So what does a committee like this actually do? Well, you can think of it as the central nervous system for managing AI risk. Its job is to look at every angle, to review the AI you build yourselves, and to vet the systems you buy from other companies. But it's not just about writing reports. A committee like this needs real teeth. It needs the authority to recommend changes, and maybe most importantly, to advise against or even veto projects that are just too risky.
Of course, a committee is only as good as the people on it. And this can't just be a room full of engineers talking to each other. To get this right, you have to assemble a real cross-functional A-team.
There are 5 roles that are absolutely essential. First, you need the ethicist, someone trained to spot these thorny dilemmas. Then, the lawyer, who knows anti-discrimination law inside and out. You also need the business strategist, who can weigh the ethical risks against the business rewards. Of course, you need the technologist, who can explain what the AI is actually doing under the hood. And finally, the bias scout. This is a subject matter expert who can spot potential bias way early in the game, before it ever becomes a line of code.
At the end of the day, this isn't just about playing defense and avoiding lawsuits or bad press. It's about being proactive. It's about building a better, more trustworthy business from the ground up. This is how you build real, lasting trust with your own employees, with your customers, and with the public.
So we'll leave you with a question to take back to your own organization. Your AI is already making decisions. It doesn't matter if you built it or if you just bought it from a vendor. The only question that really matters is this: who is making sure those decisions are the right ones?